Baseball on Cape Ann dates back to just after the Civil War, when the concept of leisure time and vacation travel first became a part of the country's culture. Before modern rules were established, there were teams of 9 players each from every neighborhood competing in round ball, or town ball as it was initially called. Baseball's popularity soared across the United States. Leagues, exhibitions, and barnstorming teams became favorite summertime sensations alongside other newfound phenomena, ice cream and days at the beach. And in those early years, as baseball grew into our national pastime, one unassuming but rock-steady player from just down the street rose to stardom. Today he remains the most accomplished professional athlete in Cape Ann's history. I'm Kory Curcuru for 1623 Studios, and this is the story of Stuffy McInnis. John Phelan McInnis was born in Gloucester on September 9, 1890, the fourth of 5 sons to Stephen and Uta Villa, who hailed from Nova Scotia. The McInnises lived on Warner Street, where Father Stephen took care of driving horses and was a fireman on one of the city's first ladder trucks. The McInnis brothers fell for the baseball craze, practicing day and night with taped-up balls of their mother's knitting yarn. They became standout athletes at Gloucester High School, but John was exceptionally talented. Just 5'8" and 150 pounds, John was a multi-sport star, captaining state baseball championships in 1906 and 1907. His flawless defense at shortstop, the position for the most skilled baseball players, earned him the nickname Stuffy because after each great play, folks in the crowd yelled, "That's the stuff, kid!" Stuffy's play caught the eye of Dick Madden, a fellow ballplayer and the premier baseball promoter on the North Shore. Local traveling teams attracted large, paying crowds, so Madden recruited Stuffy for a semi-pro team in Beverly, which featured adult and college players. Stuffy continued to excel. He left Gloucester High without graduating to play for the semi-pro Haverhill Hustlers. Before turning 18, Stuffy was earning $100 a month, about $3,500 a month today. Promoter Madden raved about the young phenom to a man he knew from the barnstorming circuit, Connie Mack. A Massachusetts native, Mack, born Cornelius McGillicuddy, was a decent player, but really made his mark as one of Major League Baseball's powerful early pioneers. He gained renown as the manager and part owner of the Philadelphia Athletics, also known as the Philadelphia A's. Mack wanted Stuffy to play for the A's, but because Stuffy was underage, he couldn't legally play in the majors until the following season. So, Mack signed Stuffy to play for Philadelphia's farm team in New Bedford. Around here, Stuffy was the toast of the town. He played to heavy fanfare all over the North Shore. A townie team in Lynn even held Stuffy McInnis Day to celebrate the big news. All of this for an 18-year-old kid who just a couple years earlier was hitting balls of yarn with sticks in fields and farms throughout Gloucester. In March of 1909, Stuffy reported to spring training in Savannah, Georgia. The inimitable Mack, who famously managed games in tailored suits, immediately took to the businesslike McInnis, who, like Mack, didn't smoke or drink. Stuffy made Philadelphia's opening day roster as a backup shortstop, outperforming dozens of athletics prospects, including Joseph Jefferson Jackson, known better by his legendary nickname, Shoeless Joe. At age 18, Stuffy was the youngest player in the 8-team American League. In 6 months, he went from Stage Fort Park to the grand opening of Shibe Park in Philadelphia, the country's first steel and girder ballpark that housed over 20,000 fans. For 2 seasons, Stuffy filled in at various positions, using his time to learn the game's nuances, everything from coaching strategies to finicky field conditions and the temperaments of every umpire. In the meantime, Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics were becoming a dynasty. They won the World Series in 1910, after which Mack replaced the team's aging star first baseman, Harry Davis, with Stuffy. Despite his short stature, Stuffy's fielding ability was off the charts. Out of necessity, he introduced the first baseman stretch, reaching for throws from teammates by nearly doing splits, and hardly made any errors. At the plate, he was an on-base machine, consistently batting over 300 and rarely striking out. Alongside Jack Barry at shortstop and Hall of Famers Eddie Collins at second base and Frank Home Run Baker at third base, Stuffy became part of what was famously known as the $100,000 infield, a hyperbolic term coined by admirers. The A's dominated the American League and won the World Series in 2 of the next 3 seasons. Across the nation, the quiet, modest Stuffy was a household name. But in 1914, the heavily favored A's were swept in the World Series by the underdog Boston Braves. Connie Mack, strapped for cash like many franchise owners back in the day, flipped his lid and demanded that his players take pay cuts. 3 refused. Jack Barry and Eddie Collins were traded. Frank Baker quit. Stuffy stayed. McInnis's play didn't suffer, but the Athletics bottomed out, finishing dead last by a mile for 3 straight years. In another cost-cutting move, Mack traded Stuffy to the Boston Red Sox after the 1917 season. It gave Mack salary relief and brought Stuffy home. Stuffy married Elsie Dow of Manchester, whose father owned a fish market on Summer Street. They built a house on Tappan Street just across Masconomo Park. It would be their home for over 40 years. That year at Fenway Park, Stuffy had another stellar season, and the Red Sox faced the Chicago Cubs in the 1918 World Series. In Game 1, he drove in the game's only run for pitcher Babe Ruth, as well as the series-clinching run in Game 6. It was the franchise's last title for 86 years. Stuffy and the Babe became pals. In the off-season, they barnstormed New England together for a few extra bucks. The Friends played an exhibition at Cooney Field in Beverly on October 10, 1919, against a team from Marblehead. Ruth homered in what ended up being the last time he played as a member of the Red Sox. Because just a few months later... You know what? Let's skip that part. After a few seasons with the Red Sox, Stuffy played for the Cleveland Indians. Then, at Elsie's insistence, signed with the local National League team, the Boston Braves, so they could start a family. McInnis lived the life. He toured Europe as part of an exhibition series under another legendary manager, John McGraw, where he met Pope Pius XI and members of the British royal family. He even showcased his skills as a basketball player for the original Celtics, a barnstorming club from New York City that inspired Boston's future professional franchise. Oh, he also recorded what ended up being the lowest score ever at Candlewood Golf Course in Ipswich, 5 under par. At age 35, Stuffy made one last splash as a part-time player for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Down 3-1 in the 1925 World Series to the Washington Senators, the grizzled veteran was put into the lineup to turn the tide. Stuffy was one of the first in baseball to utilize the shift, a defensive strategy where fielders are moved from their normal positions depending on the batter's hitting tendencies. He then called pitches, meaning he would discreetly communicate to his pitchers what type of pitch to throw and where to throw it in order for batters to hit into the defensive shift. It worked like a charm. The Pirates rallied to win the series in 7 games. It was Stuffy's 5th World Series title, making him one of only a handful of players in Major League history to win championships with 3 different teams. Stuffy's playing career ended in 1926. Upon retiring, he managed the Philadelphia Phillies for a year before coming home to Cape Ann. For the better part of 3 decades, Stuffy coached at the college and amateur levels, including a decade at Norwich University, before finishing his baseball career in 1954 after 5 seasons at Harvard. Stuffy quietly spent the rest of his days in Manchester with Elsie, their daughter Eileen, and their 3 grandchildren. He was a huge supporter of youth sports and often cheered on Manchester's high school, known then as Story School. Stuffy made a routine of getting his afternoon newspapers from the Manchester fruit store, chatting with kids along the way, and shooting the breeze with pals in the back room of the old Browns Market. The simple life of a superstar. John Stuffy McInnis passed away in 1960, just 1 year after Elsie. Both were laid to rest at Manchester's Rosedale Cemetery. Incredibly, despite a laundry list of achievements, records, and grassroots campaigns, Stuffy has yet to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Some say it's because he wasn't a home run hitter. Others say he was surrounded by flashier names. But the numbers don't lie. You be the judge. And keep in mind, to date, there have been more than 20,000 Major League Baseball players. A career batting average of .307, hitting over 300 12 times. Top 10 all-time for lowest strikeout ratio. He's one of only 2 players who struck out less than 10 times in a season with more than 500 at-bats. He's third all-time in sacrifices. He had 2 streaks of 150-plus games without an error. He holds the American League record for fewest errors at first base. His career fielding percentage was .990. That means he didn't make an error 99% of the time during his 19-year career. Even if you don't understand baseball, just know this: Stuffy McInnis was a stud. It's hard to believe that he's been overlooked and largely forgotten by baseball fans and the Baseball Hall of Fame. Then again, here's something to think about over your next fistful of peanuts and Cracker Jack. It's been over a century since Stuffy McInnis retired. How is it possible that of all the ballparks, all the school stadiums, and all the playing fields groomed around Cape Ann over the last 100-plus years, that none have been named after the area's most accomplished athlete, John Phelan Stuffy McInnis? Maybe it's time to correct an error for the man who hardly made one.